You are listening to Radio Maria Canada. We now present the Health Hub, hosted by Kathy Biasi.
Welcome to the Health Hub on Radio Maria Canada, exploring cutting-edge health and wellness information and therapies, helping you to take your health to the next level. I'm your host, Kathy Biasi, and I'm a holistic nutritionist and a professional cancer coach. Today on our show with my guest, Greg Johnson, we are exploring a rising star in the world of wellness, molecular hydrogen. You may have seen hydrogenated infused water lining the shelves or heard whispers about its antioxidant powers, but what exactly is it? Is it just hype, or does science back up the claims? In this episode, we're breaking down what molecular hydrogen actually is, how it works in the body, and the surprising research suggesting it may have benefits ranging from reducing inflammation, improving energy, neuroprotection, and athletic recovery. We will also discuss who shouldn't be using it and any potential contraindications and the various ways you can safely consume it. Greg is a molecular hydrogen therapy specialist, researcher, and host of the popular YouTube channel Uprising 144K. Struggling to find answers and overcome extreme depression due to his compromised immune system, tumors, autoimmune issues, gut health issues, arthritis, being wheelchair bound, and a very serious heart condition, he began his own journey to heal himself and discovered hydrogen along the way. Studying the complex compound for 4 years, he implemented it into his health regime and reversed his health challenges. As mentioned, this is something that may be very new to people. It's very worthwhile to listen to the show, expand your knowledge, have another tool in your toolkit when it comes to supporting your own health. Stick with us. We will be back in just a few minutes to speak with Greg Johnson.
You are listening to Radio Maria Canada. We now continue with the program, The Health Hub, hosted by Kathy Biasi.
Welcome back to the Health Hub, everybody. Please do follow us on our social sites. We are on Instagram, X, and Facebook, and we are at the Health Hub RMC. On those locations, we have lots of information that comes through, health-related information, but most importantly about our upcoming guests. So please do give us a follow. Greg, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, I have not had anybody on the show talking about the benefits of hydrogen. I am sure that the vast majority of us don't know much about it other than it's partially what we breathe. So looking forward to you elucidating this whole area of health for us. Before we get into specifics of hydrogen and the different forms and everything, why don't you lay out for us why you became a specialist in this area?
Well, it really all started with me having my own medical issues. And, I actually worked in the medical field for like 2 decades, maybe a little more. And by working there, sadly, now, before I go, I'm not going to give any medical advice today. I'm not making any medical claims today. And I'm not making any claims, for or against any product or products, because I definitely have my own opinions on this subject matter. I was really ill. I mean, I had some major medical issues. Technically, I shouldn't even be alive right now. And I knew when I started having issues that I was in for some trouble because, well, I know exactly how Western medicine works, sadly. being in that field for so long that, yeah, I got nervous. And of course, I ended up having to go that route. And of course, it didn't work. And I was just getting worse. And, my life turned into a living hell, sadly. And I ended up having to basically walk my own path. I know there's a lot of like health gurus out there and naturopathic doctors, which I went to. I tried everything. And when nothing worked, I was really frustrated and disillusioned too. I mean, personally, I think that even the more holistic routes, which some of them are really great, but I personally feel like there's just been so much things that people I feel like don't know and a lot of confusion about a lot of things. And I started doing a lot of critical thinking and I started doing a lot of research on any of the latest sciences, anything I could learn. And that's when I stumbled upon hydrogen. And the reason I was looking at a lot of the medical data or scientific, studies or whatever I could find is I was trying to just go to the source as much as possible for information to see what I could figure out to help my multiple medical issues. And I stumbled upon hydrogen. And when I did, I honestly thought this is a scam because I'm a real skeptic. I mean, it takes a lot to convince someone like me. Things need to make sense, or I need to see some type of data, or both. And that's really how it all got started. But I read the data for years. I didn't try hydrogen for years. I just kept thinking it was kind of a scam. And at the same time, where do you go get hydrogen? Do you just run to the corner drugstore? I mean, you're not going to get the hydrogen. And on top of that, what kind of hydrogen are we talking about? Because I am talking about specifically molecular hydrogen. I am not talking about other forms of hydrogen because I've noticed that some people piggyback on the information. Like if you've ever heard of something called, have you ever heard of Brown's gas?
No, I haven't.
So to me, Brown's gas is something that I did try and I regret it and I wish I would have never done it because they tend to talk about hydrogen and then they give you something that is not actually molecular hydrogen. And so so there's a lot of confusion out there about hydrogen in a major way. And there's things like little tablets and little bottles. In my opinion, they're just kind of gimmicky. They're not serious equipment if you're looking to do something serious with hydrogen, like on a medical level. And of course, I tried the cheap methods, the ones that I just stated, but they really didn't work again. So I really became a specialist in the field, not just learning so much about hydrogen, but what I really ended up going into. Because for me, it's clear as day that hydrogen's good for you. I mean, we're talking, I believe there's over 2,000 studies at this point. It's already medically used in Japan at certain university hospitals. And so it's already the real deal. But what I didn't realize, it took me time to realize, is how you make it actually matters. And that goes for anything, right? How you make a car. Is it going to be a good car or not? Or how you build anything, or even how you grow food. So how you make hydrogen truly, truly matters. And that was the one thing that I never hear people talk about it. And that's the thing that I really embarked on a crazy journey and became actually a hydrogen production specialist because I was already sold on the hydrogen. The hydrogen is amazing. But yeah, how you produce it and how you use it is the part that was the most difficult. And once I did that, the things I started seeing were just dramatic. Like my father was always one of my best examples because he was having like arthritis, diabetes, cholesterol issues, blood pressure issues, glaucoma. And yeah, he was just having issues. And of course, he was on medications that are known to basically cause liver failure or eventually kill you. I've seen that before, sadly. And I didn't want him on that stuff. And so I had read all this data and I was like, Dad, are you willing to try hydrogen? Hydrogen and clean water. I'm also a water specialist in the sense that I learned every water filtration modality in existence. I've seen multiple lab reports on all sorts of stuff. I've seen lab reports on water, supplements, hydrogen. And it's really shocking the things that I've discovered throughout the years in regards to looking at actual lab reports. And that's why I'm so picky about the products that I use now. And basically, that's the route that I ended up going and seeing the results both for myself, but like my dad was a big one for me. Seeing all his stuff disappear. I remember his doctor, especially his eye doctor, he had glaucoma for over 3 decades, my dad. And when the eye doctor, he has to get checked every year. When they checked his eyes, they're like, we must have done something wrong because we show that you don't even have glaucoma anymore. And they said, we know that's not true. They said, because you've been coming here for so long and you clearly have it, and nobody's glaucoma goes away as they get older. And of course his arthritis went away and he was no longer diabetic, or he was pre-diabetic, but he was really close to it, and that was all gone. And so it was the results were absolutely dramatic. And now throughout the years, that was years ago. I mean, now, I mean, the things that I've seen things from dementia and Alzheimer's. I've put some really great videos and testimonials, absolutely blowing the mind of the doctors, the nurses, family members. I get beautiful emails from people thanking me. There was a girl, this was a really sad story, but there was a girl who had a stroke, and she's like 26 years old. And she literally couldn't walk, talk, nor dress herself. Doctors have been working with her for almost 2 years with like zero results. And that's something that obviously was really heartbreaking for the family. And then they heard of me and they did the hydrogen the way that I personally recommended and use it. And now her daughter is walking, talking, and dressing herself. And what ended up happening is her mother wrote me a beautiful email, and it almost brings me to tears every time I think about it, because she said, you gave me my daughter back, and they had lost all hope.
Well, what is the impact? If you had to nail it down, what is the impact of hydrogen on the body?
Well, basically, I mean, hydrogen is basically a gas. So your question is like saying, what does oxygen do for the body? What does hydrogen do for the body, right? All these gases affect us in different ways. And of course, we've seen in the data that it appears to function as a like antioxidant, but it's a selective antioxidant. It's a very unique antioxidant. It's not normal. Most people don't realize that all antioxidants come in different sizes. So vitamin E, vitamin C, glutathione, CoQ10, all these are different sizes. And hydrogen is way tinier than any of them, which means that it can reach anywhere inside your body, including the core of your mitochondria. It's one of the reasons that hydrogen, I've seen it, and the data shows that it gives you basically energy. So it helps. I've worked with a lot of people with like chronic fatigue syndrome and stuff like that. And so it's really remarkable for that, in my opinion, of course. And of course, they've shown how it helps with like cell signaling. It's absolutely incredible for the gut in regards to not just inflammation, but just like your gut flora. In fact, for myself, so I've been basically my own guinea pig, testing myself for years. And one of the things that I started noticing that the doctor was really confused about, there's a blood specialist doctor that I go get blood work at. And she called me the last time she saw my blood work, because we didn't have really a rapport or anything at first. And she called me, which is very nerve-wracking, by the way, because anybody who works in the medical field knows that when you get a phone call, it's typically bad news.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really worried. And I was like, what did you find? And she said, just relax. I'm not calling because there's a problem. I'm calling because, she said, in all the years that I've been doing this, over 3 decades, she said, I have never in my life seen blood work like yours. She said, I had to call you. She said, I want to know what you're doing. She said, I have a lot of sick patients. My own daughter's sick, and I need help. And it was funny, because I get a lot of doctors, a lot of naturopaths, a lot of, all sorts of different people contact me for help. They run out of options. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I mean, like I said, the truth is, I mean, we know that hydrogen has all these different types of functions, but nobody in the world at this time knows the full mechanistic action of molecular hydrogen. So they haven't really quite figured out the whole breakdown of exactly what it does. Like I said, we know that its function as an anti-inflammatory. I mean, that's great, and a selective antioxidant. All these things are great. I mean, we've seen it open up what's called ghost vessels, which is really amazing. There's so much that we've seen it do. I think that's the biggest thing we see is what it does. It's harder for us to understand why it does it and how it does it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's
So
been one thing.
you mentioned that you work specifically with molecular hydrogen, and I didn't take a step back for you to explain that. So what are the different types of hydrogen, and why do you work with molecular hydrogen?
So the whole reason I focus on molecular hydrogen is because that's what the data is all about. The data shows like all these benefits that they've seen for almost 200 different diseases is basically they're using molecular hydrogen. I think the problem is that we live in a world where people try to take something like, you might see some data on vitamin C, and then all of a sudden everybody's trying to, sell you vitamin C or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And I've seen that huge impact on molecular hydrogen and, right now. And so, but I'm always trying to follow the latest data. So I'm not trying to follow people's opinions or different things out there like water. Again, I'm truly a water expert. I could tell you everything about water, and I actually love water. But then you get into all these people who start making up stuff, where, like, for example, the Kangen machines. Have you ever heard of those?
Yes.
So I know those are really popular, but there's a very big difference between looking at short-term data and long-term data. In short-term data, the Kangens look really good. Long-term data, not so good, because artificially alkalinizing water through ionization, basically they found in long-term research in Japan, was actually disrupting your stomach acids, which you don't want to do. Your
Hmm.
stomach acids have a function, and you disrupt it by using this alkalinity from ionization. And so it has its place in other ways that you could apply it and use it. But for what I'm trying to do, like on a real medical level, which is what I've been doing, you really want to use, well, again, you go with the latest science, and the latest science is all about pure molecular hydrogen. And just so you know, molecular hydrogen is pH neutral. So when you dissolve it in water, it doesn't change the pH.
Okay.
And that's the way it's supposed to be according to all the data. And I go off all the data from Japan because they are the absolute mecca and the highest of specialists in the world when it comes to hydrogen. They're actually the ones who discovered molecular hydrogen as far as how it works, in regards to all these, different health issues and medical application. So that's why I follow that instead of, you know, listening to just random people, because that's what really frustrated me actually when I was really sick. I was listening to a lot of podcasts, and everybody has a different opinion, right? Somebody's like, "Oh, you should eat nothing but meat." Somebody says, "No, you should eat nothing but raw vegetables." And other people say, "No, you should," so everybody has their opinions even on water, but I just go with, again, data and common sense rather than a lot of the stuff out there that I think is silly sometimes.
So where's the science coming from? I know you said Japan, but who's doing the research?
So these are major university hospitals. So this research has been going on for a long time, many, many years. It took a long time for it to really get to be more well known. In fact, for a while there, even the Japanese try to shut it down, their government. I don't know why. That's the only thing that I find a little suspicious, because this stuff clearly is incredible. I mean, I literally have all sorts of lab reports. I have like live blood analysis. I remember a doctor who watched my YouTube channel, saw my video. I have them numbered. One of them's number 68. And when she saw it, she said, "That's impossible." She contacted me and she was trying to debunk what I was showing.
Hmm.
She ended up getting the same equipment that I used, which, for those who want to see what I use, it's a Japanese equipment from their official site's called Holy Hydrogen. And that's the equipment that she got because that's what was used in the lab test. And she repeated the whole lab test in her own lab, trying to disprove me, only to prove the same exact results. And once that happened, she became a huge believer in hydrogen and started using it on her own mother, which the results were remarkable actually for her own mother. And so, it's been such a interesting experience and ride, learning all this. But yeah, the Japanese are absolutely the ones who were really, really persistent, actually. And I'm glad that they were, because otherwise the world would be a very different place. And this
Hmm.
stuff has changed so many lives. It's been absolutely incredible.
And is it directed for, in your opinion, specific health issues, or is it the overall impact of hydrogen on the body that you're cueing in on? Like, if someone comes to you and says, "I have eczema," yes, no for hydrogen, or is it hydrogen will benefit you, and then in and of itself, with the impact on the body, will quell the eczema?
I think it's actually a little bit of both, because so hydrogen is just super good for you, because think about any nutrient in the body or any mineral. You really don't want to be deficient in anything. And in regards to hydrogen, our body does make it. And as we age, we actually make less and less of it. I've seen the greatest results I've ever seen, like just crazy off the charts. You can't even believe what you're witnessing, is with people who are older. So the older they are, the bigger the results I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
Seen them with youth and that kind of thing also, but it's with the elderly that I see the most dramatic results. However, hydrogen is not just for medical application. There has been research also in Japan in regards to how it affects athletes, which is kind of interesting, with showing great benefit. And I actually would really like to use it in the future. I just need to make the right connections and contacts. But for people who get hit in the head a lot, boxers, football players, certain athletes, because the brain shakes a little bit in the head and can cause inflammation. And I think a lot of people know that, there is life after sports, but a lot of these people who've had different head injuries, it can cause issues for them later on in life. In fact, I have a really amazing testimonial of a woman who was in a really bad accident and had TBI, which is traumatic brain injury. And no doctor could ever help her. She spent a small fortune on physicians, and different doctors trying to help her. Nobody. She was actually, I didn't find out till later, but apparently she was contemplating ending her own life because it was so bad. And she heard me on a show, literally 24 hours. She said, I mean, she was really considering some pretty bad things. And when she found me, she said, I just felt it. I felt something and I just went for it. And it absolutely changed her life. In fact, if people want to like literally see her talk about it, they did an interview with her on a YouTube channel from the company that carries the best device in the world, obviously, in my opinion, Japanese equipment. But their website or their YouTube channel is called Holy Hydrogen, same thing. And you can see this lady's testimonial, and there's quite a few. I've heard of so many throughout the years of people that I work with because I do individual consults, not as much as I used to anymore. But when people really feel that they need help, I tend to offer it.
Mm-hmm.
So neurologically, I see huge benefits. As far as for athletics, I see huge benefits for numerous medical issues. I mean, again, I think it's almost nudging on 200 different medical issues that they've shown that hydrogen's amazing for. I just had a testimonial recently, but very similar to my issues too. One of my issues was a woman who's almost 100 years old, and she had multiple different heart conditions. And her doctors basically told her, look, you're old, you don't have a ton of time, and she's on pharmaceuticals. And somebody heard of me again, and she got on the hydrogen. And I'm not kidding you. Her doctor sent me her medical records. I got an email from the doctor, and I showed the medical records and the results on one of my YouTube videos. I do all this for free and share it all for free. And basically, her heart conditions are all gone. Never needed surgery, never needed medicines. In fact, her body started working so well that she'd been on some pharmaceutical for blood pressure for almost 4 decades. And they had to take her off of it. They couldn't, the doctor even said he was nervous taking her off the medication. He's like, I've never seen anything like this. How does she just get better all of a sudden? But that's exactly what happened. And so they took her off the medications. It's just she's officially off pharmaceuticals, never needed any, surgery or anything for her heart. I myself had a heart condition that they told me would end my life. I'm supposed to be dead already, actually. And I never needed surgery. My heart condition went away. It's so unbelievable. I mean, unbelievable. Honestly, I don't think there's almost any doctor out there that really knows about this or truly understands it other than a few. Obviously there's specialists in Japan, but all the other doctors are not educated on hydrogen. They don't educate about that in medical school.
So the mechanism of action here is an anti-inflammatory, or would you say it is more of an antioxidant, or we just don't know?
What we know is that there's a ton of different ones. There's a ton of different mechanistic actions. We just don't know the full mechanism of action. So yes, what you said, those are accurate. And like I said, even the way it affects what's called an NRF2 pathway, different cell signaling, the way that it protects the body is another unusual aspect of hydrogen. I have a video on number 8. I show these cells that are being exposed to chemotherapy, and how it's so damaging to your cells. And then they did the same thing, but they used hydrogen, and you got barely any cellular damage. And so hydrogen's extremely protective. In fact, I'll share something that I found just kind of funny with you. I started noticing, actually, it was my dad who noticed it first, that he liked to go out in the sun, but he noticed he stopped burning. And then I thought that was really odd. And then I noticed I stopped burning. And then my viewers on my channel noticed that they wouldn't burn. When you're using hydrogen, I've noticed that it has a profound effect on the skin. And by the way, a lot of skin issues too. You were talking about eczema. In fact, another testimonial I just posted recently on a severe skin issue that these doctors could not fix either. And somebody heard about me, and this person literally fixed their skin condition like within a week. It was so fast and unbelievable. And it's just, truly, truly unbelievable. I think the fact that it can reach many places is actually part of its power, because there's no place in your body that can hide from it. It can literally reach anywhere in your body, from your brain to your toes. I have some footage from another medical center in Japan showing the effects it has on temperature. So basically, they did a thermo-imaging study. I literally published the studies on one of my videos. And there's a correlation. I'm not sure if you're aware of this. There's a correlation between core body temperature and disease. So they found out that almost every single person who has cancer, their core body temperature is lower than it should be.
Interesting.
And this is actually, and the Japanese are the ones who discovered this. And they noticed that there's a profound difference just with disease in general and core body temperature. And then somebody got the bright idea of doing thermal imaging while using that Japanese device, which is the number one device in Japan. That's why it's so well known. And they did the study with the thermal imaging, and sure enough, they show that it increases and helps your core body temperature. It also helps with blood flow a lot. And one of the crazier things I noticed with the whole blood work thing is it appears that I've literally gotten my body to start producing vitamins, like certain nutrients. And so that's why the doctor couldn't understand how my nutrient level, like I literally have no nutritional deficiencies, and that is extremely rare.
I wonder if that's tied to the gut.
Well, that's exactly what it's tied to. Yes, that's the data, which is very preliminary right now. I think I'm one of the first people in the world, probably because I've been using the hydrogen for so long, that literally you're producing these nutrients in your gut. That's absolutely correct. And I've worked with a lot of people who've had like IBS, Crohn's disease, celiac disease, all sorts of gut issues, with amazing results, like mind blowing. There's a woman, she told me she could never eat gluten or breads, stuff like this, because it would cause her so much pain. She said it was so painful. It was like having a baby. And I was like, wow, that's shocking. She had gone to so many different doctors and naturopaths and everything else, spent over $200,000 in obviously a matter of many years. It was over a decade. She had so many issues in regards to this, and she did my protocol and completely solved it. She couldn't believe it. She goes, I can eat pizza again, and just crazy. So it was so unbelievable. I mean,
The stories are amazing. It's it's the reason that I wanted you to come on the show to tell people about it, because this is what we do here. Try and give tools to people for their health. Greg, let's take a quick break here, and we'll be back, and then we're going to get into perhaps some protocols, and I'd like to also talk about contraindications and the methods of doing the hydrogen therapy. So everyone will be back in just a couple of minutes.
You are listening to The Health Hub here on Radio Maria Canada, a Catholic voice wherever you are. To contact us and be a part of the show, email thh@radiomaria.ca. We now continue with the program. Here once again is your host, Kathy Biasi.
Welcome back to the Health Hub, everybody. Greg, I wanted to ask you, are there any contraindications when it comes to hydrogen therapy?
So, of course, again, in my opinion, from what I've seen, there are a few. So, for example, remember I told you about this woman who's almost 100 years old who was on blood pressure medication. And I've seen this literally like a million times. So I caution people out there, if you're on blood pressure medication, all you have to do is, especially if you're using the right hydrogen and using the right protocol, absolutely monitor your blood pressure, because what's going to happen, and this is what I've seen a lot, of course, you're going to have potentially your blood pressure is going to start normalizing. So if you're taking a medication to make it drop, now you're going to be having low blood pressure. And so you really have to watch out, because typically what I've seen is people, their doctors end up slowly taking them off the medication. There have been a few people who didn't uh, pay attention to, like to the cautions that I would give like this. And then of course later on something happens and they're like, oh my God, I didn't, I'm so dizzy, and they didn't realize their blood pressure was like really low.
Okay.
Because they never thought in a million years that hydrogen would do something, that it would work that good. Another one would be things like diabetes. So another thing that I've noticed with hydrogen is literally like I've noticed that a certain amount of milligrams of hydrogen seems to have a profound effect on blood glucose levels, which is a really good thing. It really seems to help regulate blood glucose, but that's also an issue if you're taking medicines to try to lower it. So make sure to basically you just have to really monitor your stuff closely, because once you start seeing changes, you want to start making adjustments. And of course, if you have kidney issues and you're limited on the amount of water you can drink and things of that nature.
Okay, so we're going to get into that delivery method then too, because I'm assuming too much of a good thing is not a good thing. Now, the one question, from my background, working with cancer patients, have you seen any contraindications with using hydrogen on cancer patients? Does it cause cell growth?
Actually, I've seen the opposite. So there's data already to suggest, so there's already scientific studies on this in regards to slowing down cancer or even just keeping it from spreading. I'm actually working with someone right now who, because again, I do these consults, and we literally saw cancer just stop in its tracks. And she had a very fast moving cancer. And so this has been a very common thing there. The biggest thing I've seen is using hydrogen with conventional therapy. Like I have all sorts of different protocols, but some people obviously still want to go conventional, and which is fine. And when they do, dramatic difference when you use hydrogen. I mean, it is night and day. We're talking, and there's so much of this data coming out of Japan where basically people would get way less symptoms because, it's really nasty to go through cancer treatment as far as chemo and whatnot, and significantly lowering side effects to sometimes even just having none. And then the other thing is the cancer goes away so much faster. This is what we've seen repeatedly. In fact, there's a woman who I know who had breast cancer really bad, spread all over her body. She was given like 3 months to live, maybe 4. And it was a very sad story. And they didn't even want to do anything. They didn't even want to do treatment. That's how bad it was. But she did end up getting the treatment, but she did a hydrogen protocol, the same one that I would do. And her cancer went away so fast, and the doctors could not believe it. So, for example, these are just random numbers, but if they were to tell you, hey, you need 10 rounds of, chemo or whatever, the biggest thing we've seen repeatedly is literally after 3 to 5 rounds, so basically half or less of the treatments, and the cancer's already gone. It responds so fast. It's very interesting, and I think it is an absolute game changer for cancer treatment, in my opinion. And
And
so
are
it's
they
going to,
doing more and more research on this within the medical field?
yes, yeah,
Perfect. Okay.
there already is a lot of research on that in Japan.
Okay, good to know. Method of delivery. Are we breathing this? Are we drinking this? Are all hydrogens created the same?
So, in my opinion, definitely after studying in Japan and learning about every single hydrogen production method in existence, I very quickly learned that all hydrogen is not created equal. That's the reason that I wanted to just the best, right? That's what I wanted for myself. And I noticed that the best was coming out of Japan, but yet most products are actually coming out of China. So the best comes out of Japan, but the majority comes out of China. And the ones from China, I'm not very fond of. They're using a lot of what's called plated metals. They're using a lot of like stainless steel, lye, sodium hydroxide, direct ionization methods that I'm definitely not in agreement with, and I would never use myself, knowing what I know now. And then as far as application, the technique that I developed, which ended up, they did, believe it or not, they studied my protocol. So I created a protocol, and after they studied it, they basically proved that it works better than any other method ever. And that is a combination. So what I do is I use a combination of dissolving the gas in water. So basically think of it like, well, think of like carbonated water. That's a gas, CO2 is dissolved in the water. We're dissolving molecular hydrogen into the water. So you drink that water, and then the device that I use from Holy Hydrogen also offers hydrogen gas inhalation. So it does both, which is really what you want. And so those are the two delivery methods that are I think, very accessible and very effective and very affordable as compared to, other very expensive methods, which are almost unattainable, really, for the average person, especially in the US.
So the delivery system for half of your protocol is hydrogen and water. Can we just use our own tap water?
I wouldn't, just because of the fact that, again, being a water specialist, also all the lab reports, I mean, you'd be shocked at what's in our water. I'm surprised more people don't talk about it. I mean, the level of pharmaceuticals, the level of just PFAS, that's a huge, have you seen the numbers of autism in California? Just off
In
the chart.
California, no. I know that they're off the charts everywhere.
Yeah, and I believe in California, it's like 1 in 13 kids have autism. And I think nation, it's like 1 in 25 or something like that. So one of the things about California is they have really high levels of PFAS in their water. PFAS is also known as a forever chemical. And that's just one of many, many, many things in water. And so what I did is I studied. So, when everybody's always arguing like, oh, you should drink spring water, or you should drink alkaline water. No, you should drink this water. Everybody has their own opinion on water.
Mhm.
For me, after all the frustration in my research, I decided, what about just the cleanest water? Like, I don't care about the pH. I just want it clean. I don't want any garbage in it. And that's when I found what's called carbon distillation. If anybody wants to, it's really cheap too, actually, to do. If anybody wants to look at the equipment, that I use, it's called mypurewater.com. And of course, if people want discount codes, they like those, but it's Uprising 144K is a discount code. But those carbon distillers, that's what I use. I mean, we're talking about getting rid of mold, viruses, bacteria, parasites, PFAS. They have third-party lab testing to show you what it gets out of the water. And I mean, you're going to be getting practically the cleanest water known to man. And there's all sorts of crazy protocols I have that you cannot do unless you use that kind of water, because otherwise it can be dangerous. Just to give you an example, have you ever heard of a neti pot?
Yes,
And have you heard of people dying from using a neti pot?
I have not.
And this is because they obviously didn't read the directions and they used something like tap water. And the problem is that if you have like a little, let's say a parasite in the water, which is very common, and you run it through your sinuses like that, people literally can get it right into their brain and it'll start eating away at your brain and you don't even know. And this, I've heard of stories like 6 months later, somebody can't think straight. And so it's a very dangerous thing. You want to use super, super clean water. If you read the directions, it literally says use only distilled water. And that's why I carbon distill my water to make it absolutely super pure. And the human body loves clean water. I mean, I think most people have never even had that level of clean water. I remember when I put my father on it, and my mother ended up seeing the results, so she got on it. And of course, she had her results too with the clean water and the hydrogen. And I remember they told me literally just within a month, they said, well, you ruined us. We can't drink water anywhere anymore because they can taste the level of how bad it tastes once you've been drinking something that's really clean. Your palate gets used to it. You know what I mean?
So is it just tap water filtered through carbon?
No, it's a combination of carbon and distillation. So, because when you distill water, so that's actually, believe it or not, I learned how to do it by observing nature. So that's another one of my methods. I look at science, but I also look at nature. And people are surprised to find out, well, how does nature purify water? And it starts with hydrogen. It starts with your sun. The sun hits the ocean, the water literally begins to ascend. It starts going upwards. And when it does that process, it leaves all the impurities behind. And so you get a machine to do that. But there's a few things that get by it, not much, but just a little bit. And the little carbon at the end of it finishes the job. And that's it. Just distillation and carbon, and you can have cleanest water practically on the planet.
So if you don't have the cleanest water, doing the hydrogen in the water, could that be detrimental? Because not everyone's going to go buy a new system.
Yeah, you can use whatever filter that you currently have. I mean, remember, you're just dissolving the hydrogen into the water. So you can use any water you want. It's just a matter of, at least in my opinion, if you're trying to really transform your health, well, yeah, you're going to want the cleanest water. But I will say, I've still seen people get results. The hydrogen is that powerful. I mean, we're talking about something so ridiculously powerful that, you could probably dissolve it in almost any kind of water. But of course, I tend to recommend the best of everything. Like I want the best food that's organic, no pesticides. I want the cleanest water. I want the cleanest, best hydrogen with proper levels. And I've done this because I found that that's what really helped me recover from all sorts of crazy, issues.
Sorry there, I just had a blip in my system. Okay. Can you tell us then, you've back and forth about the products that you use. Um, how much does this system cost, the hydrogen system that you're talking about?
So the hydrogen system is obviously super affordable at this point because you would have never been able to touch it. Now you can get one for like 2,500 bucks. So that makes super high quality hydrogen water, probably the best in the world, actually, in my opinion. And the hydrogen gas inhalation. And so it does it all. And the machine is one thing that I learned a lot about hydrogen devices is that they're not very reliable typically. So this Japanese company, the Japanese are really big on reliability. So they went out of their way to make this thing super robust. And it's a beautiful story if you ever hear it. The guy who created the device, which is why it's such a unique device, he did it for his daughter. His daughter was born with ALS, otherwise known as Lou Gehrig's disease, a very severe form of it. And they told her she would die in 5 years or less. She'd be lucky to make it to 5 years of age. And he knew about the science of hydrogen, but there just isn't any equipment that does it to a super high level, like what I would call medical grade hydrogen, because medical grade is very different. And that's why he developed it with the help of top engineers from Japan, like even in Toyota and G-Shock and Yamaha, they helped this guy. And that's why it was all done in Japan, where most stuff is done in China for the price. This guy didn't care about the price. He said he wants the best, and he wanted it for his daughter, and it was absolutely transforming. And that's why it's just such a unique device in the whole world of hydrogen. There's nothing that can touch it. The technology they're using is untouchable. They're at least 10, maybe even 20 years ahead of everybody, and they made it super affordable. So to get this level of hydrogen in the past, you would have had to spend probably in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not more. So the 2,500 bucks is literally a drop in the bucket for this level of hydrogen. So I'm obviously really grateful that we can even get it.
And is this a contained system, or do you have to go back to the company to buy products? How does it actually work, the brass tacks?
So that's another really nice thing about it. The way that he designed it was one, so you never have to really ship it anywhere to get any maintenance. So a lot of devices you have to do that, and it's a pain in the butt and it's really expensive. Like the Kangen machines, you have to constantly ship them somewhere to get maintained. This machine is designed for you to be able to maintain it yourself. It's super easy, super cheap, and I show videos on how to do it. Very brilliant design. And then on top of that, it needs literally maintenance is mostly just cleaning. So once you have the device, it's pretty much smooth sailing at that point. There's really almost nothing you need to do to it other than just kind of keep it clean.
And are you just adding water to it and some sort of a gas, or is it doing it all on its own?
Yeah, you do add water to it, and you add water, and it's really wild. You only add like literally like 50 cc's or 100 cc's, a really tiny amount. And then you put water in a different chamber. They did a dual chamber system on purpose so that electricity never touches the water, which is the ionization part. They found that it's more pure. And so anyway, so they did that method. And then it's just a very like almost like a beautifully simple but yet complex design, kind of like a samurai sword. Very simple and beautiful, very Japanese. And yeah, super easy to use. I've made videos, sharing information. Of course, the company has their own videos too.
And what
But
is
yeah,
the product called again?
so the machine is called the Lourdes Hydrofix Premium, and the official website. And obviously, by the way, the Chinese have made knockoffs which are not using the right technology. So I just got to warn people. I don't want anybody to have a bad experience. Just if you go to the official site, you know that you'll get an official product that's authentic, and that's the Holy Hydrogen website.
Okay, great. And if people want to reach out to you, if they want to see your videos, how do we get a hold of you?
So if you want to even support what I do, it's completely free, which is basically just go to like my YouTube video and just subscribe. So my channel is called Uprising 144K. I'm on YouTube, Rumble, Instagram, and Twitter, otherwise known as X. And anybody who's interested, I encourage to follow me on all the platforms because obviously I've been threatened and they've tried to take down my content. So, the more people that subscribe and share, it helps it get the word out.
Why have
And
they tried to take your content down?
a lot of people don't, especially, they don't want me talking about basically how you make hydrogen, believe it or not, and also obviously a lot of the medical benefits. And there's been a lot of issues in regards to that because again, remember, we're talking about a lot of companies, and I'm not going to name any, obviously, but they want to just sell people cheap stuff, and I obviously want the best for people. So for example, like I told you, there's like hydrogen tablets out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would never take those. I did in the past, and I had no idea until I saw a lab report, until I understood what they are. I would never use those, but yet they're super popular. A lot of people talk about it. Even on Joe Rogan's show, they had a guy talking about it. And I really wish that, people were more aware of what's in this stuff, because no medical professional in Japan that is a true hydrogen specialist, none of them use hydrogen tablets. And they certainly don't want to, from what I've been told, like there's a neurosurgeon who's a hydrogen specialist in Japan. He said, I would never give that to my patients. But in America, it's a little bit of the Wild West right now with hydrogen. So it upsets people, and and then of course the things that you see medically, what it does. So yeah, there's been a lot of controversy.
Fair enough. Okay. Well, I really appreciate you coming on the show, telling us about this, and as always, giving our listeners more things to think about, to do their research on. So Greg, thanks so much for being on the Health Hub.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Everybody, we will talk to you next week on the Health Hub.
You have been listening to The Health Hub, hosted by Kathy Biasi, here on Radio Maria Canada.